Hello, India, and Mahadev. And for those who say I shouldn't be saying Mahadev, I would like to point out I'm appropriately dressed. Hindutva watch, if you're out there, I'll stand still for a second so you can get your photo. There you go. All right, I'm just getting set up here. Welcome to the chat. Just get your comments in the chat, and I will try to say hello. And Rahul, thank you. Great to see you there in the chat. Anyone who has questions, please get them in the chat, and we will. We have another get another little hello in the chat. And we will start today. Get questions up in the chat, and I'll get to them as soon as I can. But first, we have to talk about Hindutva Watch. Here we go. Salvatore Babones. That's me. Salvatore Babones. My profile on Hindutva Watch. Let me get my glasses on here. I think I can do this without glasses. I think maybe if I make it a little bit bigger. Can I get to that? Yeah, there we go. Salvatore Babones, affiliation, University of Sydney. I point out that I do not speak on behalf of the University of Sydney. All my Indian Century Roundtable outreach is purely independent of the university. Category? Hate monger. So anyone who's looking for a little hate, I'm happy to sell it, but it'll cost you $8. All right. No, I just want to be very clear here. I never monger hate. In fact, I never hate at all. I challenge anyone, including Hindutva Watch. I strongly encourage you, go to my Twitter feed and go back. I think I've been on Twitter almost 10 years now, and see if anything hateful, if I've ever said a single hateful thing on Twitter. Now, how many people can say in 10 years they've never said anything hateful? I think I can say that. And have a look. All right, yes, I am the author of these things, and it's actually a pretty accurate description until you get to the end. I don't really call myself a Bharat Bhakt. I can't even say it properly. Sorry, guys, I do my best, though I have jokingly called myself lots of things. And does it, when, I love this, when put in perspective, sounds more like Modi Bhakt, devotee of Modi. So there you go. I am let's see, what else am I? I'm a vegetarian, but that kind of sounds like, I don't know. What does vegetarian sound like? A murdertarian, and thus I must be a murderer, a devotee of murder. I have no idea. Oh, I'm wearing the Shiva, the destroyer scarf, so I must be a destroyer, I suppose. Now, I haven't drawn a parallel. This is an outright misrepresentation. I have said that the vilification of Hindutva is similar to the vilification of Zionism. I actually haven't said that. I don't think I've said. Fact check me. People fact check me all the time. Maybe I said that they're similar, but my main message is that they are vilified in the same way. I take recourse to fallacy and baseless assertions when I cannot falsify empirical evidence. I'll just say my usual baseless assertions are, can you bring some data to bear on that? That's my baseless assertion typically. But I do stress that empirical evidence should be systematic. So as I always tell people, have journalists been killed in India? Yes, they have. I think that's something we should be concerned about. Have fewer journalists been killed in India, relative to population, than in most of the world, and even less fewer than in the United States? Absolutely. And that's what we call contextualization. Okay, I swiftly get into the shoes of typical Hindu extremist fringe. Well, get your photo, Hindutva Watch. I'm right here on the typical Hindu extremist fringe. By the way, for the record, I'm not even Christian. I'm atheist. And no, I know a lot of people said I should learn about Hinduism, and I'm interested in learning, but I am not considering becoming a Hindu. I'm very sorry. I don't mean any disrespect by wearing this robe. It was given to me at you can probably see down here, it was given to me at the temple, the Vishwanath temple in Varanasi. Of course, if I were Hindu, I'd be saying Kashi, but I'm not Hindu. And there we go. I have objected to global institutions. Yeah, I have objected to global institutions improperly reporting data. I have objected to global institutions um, incorrectly calculating or not reporting exculpatory evidence about minority rights in India. I have done that. My vicious ambivalence. Now, this is one, I don't quite understand how you can be viciously ambivalent. That sounds like a contradiction in terms. Now, if they said, I'm ambivalent toward the situation of minorities, I would say that's a reasonable extrapolation or interpretation of what I've said. I'm not ambivalent. I am. I think there's very strong evidence that minorities in India actually self-report that they're very happy to be in India, and I have the hard statistical evidence to back that up. But is it vicious to say that every single major minority group in India reports low levels of discrimination and being proud to be Indian? I don't think that's very vicious of me to point that out. And I have not. I did make fun of the coverage. I don't fabricate the instances of international media coverage. They fabricate it. I simply criticize it and ridicule the fabricated coverage. And what I was writing about was not coverage of illegal demolition of Muslim homes in India, which I know very little about. I was ridiculing coverage of the supposed illegal demolition of Muslim homes in New Jersey, which I'm pretty sure has not happened. Okay, the New York Times has low effort, low accuracy India coverage. Yeah, I'd be pretty sure that the New York Times has low effort, low accuracy India coverage. I think we can all agree on that. This is all about the backhoe story, but they don't seem to understand that the backhoe here did not appear in India. This backhoe was in Edison, New Jersey. So, yeah, all right. So much for that. He savors over the minority predicament in India through his insinuatingly suggestive feeds on Twitter. Well, I guess suggestion is all in the mind. And if, you're prone to your own suggestions. So there we go. Lots of fun from Hindutva Watch. One of the great, I'll give Hindutva Watch one more opportunity for a photo. There we go. And to get some better light, I closed the window or the shade because there was really shining sunlight, but I think the sun has now gone behind the building over there. So let's get this up. I'll put that back up and I'll be right back. Right back with a little more light because there is something I'd like to show you behind me. One thing I thought was very amusing, you can see in that Hindutva Watch photo that there is, there's some scrolls behind me. And here, the ultra-nationalist Hindutva apologist, oh, I'm sorry, I'm losing my scarf here. The ultra-nationalist Hindutva apologist that I'm accused to be, I find it very amusing that if you look what I have on my own walls at home, that's right, I have traditional Chinese scrolls. Right there is, let me get this right, we have winter, fall, well, we start on this side, spring, summer, fall, winter. This is a very traditional pattern of Chinese scrolls. You'll see them in many Chinese homes, and I just really liked it. I got those in Xi'an, and so much for my India obsession that I have Chinese art on the walls. There's more Buddhist art over on that wall that you can't see here, and some other stuff thrown in. In fact, I think the only thing I have that could be called Hindu art is my Vivekananda International Center Award, of which I am very proud. All right, so let's get to your questions and comments. I thought he was a Philistine. Yes, I am a Philistine. I write a column called The Philistine for the Australian magazine Quadrant. Quadrant has published some of my India work, in particular that first article that got me invited to the India Today conclave, the article on India's intellectuals being anti-India, and Quadrant also published my unholy alliance article between international Islamists and human rights activists. And Quadrant's very good to me. I write a regular column there, so I write my serious work there, but I also have a regular humor column called The Philistine. And as with Twitter, I always stress to people, I am not a comedian. People have called me a clown, a comedian. Never. I try to be a humorist. And the point is that a humorist always has a good purpose for the humor, uh, which is to say, I'm trying to bring out some deeper truth by poking fun at things that we see in society. And The Philistine is a humor column. Matthew Arnold, the culture critic, 19th century culture critic and poet, said that Americans, the American was the ideal type of the Philistine, as opposed to the cultured man, the cultured nobility of England. And so I said, yep, that's me. I'm the American Philistine, not the cultured nobility. And that's where that came from. Okay, I've missed tons of messages, so I'm going to try to get to this. I have a bunch of hellos, so thank you very much. So hello, Professor. Thank you. Hello, Professor. Good afternoon. Thank you very much, and thanks for your compliment on the scarf. I don't wear this in any way facetiously. I wear this scarf because it was given to me at the Vishwanath Temple in Varanasi, and I was very touched that to receive the scarf. Now, maybe all visitors or all international visitors get this scarf. I don't know, but in any case, it was really quite a moment. It was my very first temple visit. I've only ever been now to two Hindu temples, the Vishwanath Temple in Varanasi and to the Hare Krishna ISKCON Temple in Mangaluru or Mangalore. So that's where, and so this really meant a lot to me. My very first temple visit, it was just very special at the moment. When will I? Oh, when is your next trip to India? I have no planned trips to India. When someone invites me, I'll go. Certainly not before October, because I'm fully booked from now through October. But if I'm invited to a literary festival or something, I'd be very happy to go to India. I forgot the tilak. Well, no one put the tilak on me. I'm not going to put it on myself. I'm not Hindu. I know it would make a great photo for Hindutva Watch. You know what? Maybe I should do that for Hindutva Watch. Dress up, put a tilak on. I don't even know how to make one, so I'd have to learn. Probably better, given my predilection for Lord Shiva, is maybe a 3 stripes. We'll see if I can manage that. Congratulations for my profile. Thank you very much. No, they're not interested in facts. Well, they're interested in sorts of facts. Yes, I take inspiration from Shiva the Destroyer. Well, perhaps I do like to burst false narratives, expose false narratives, and forgive me, because I'm not a passionate warrior about this, make fun of false narratives. I think a little bit of humor goes a long way. And because these aren't my battles, because I don't have all of these issues regarding India, I have no emotional attachment to them. I'm just telling people the facts as I see them as a comparative sociologist who's been studying India, pretty intensively for 4 years or so, but who's a comparativist. I spent the whole 2010s studying China and Greater China, the Chinese world, China, Taiwan, Singapore. I spent a year as a visiting professor between Hong Kong, Singapore, and Taiwan. And I was never a advocate for China. I was just someone who studied China. And in the same way, I've become someone who studies India. I'm not an advocate. I'm someone who just tries to tell the bare truth about what I see. Thank you for the upgrade. Yeah, I'm an extremist and an atheist. So you will remember that that photo that you got a million views on Twitter about. I'm just going to take this off for a moment. Hope you don't mind. I got this photo that had a million views on Twitter about the con market gang. I'm a member of the con market gang, and I really wanted to stress for people. And in fact, I went on Shiverur's show that night or the next night to talk about the con market video, the con market photo that had gone viral. And I really want to remind everybody who either compliments me or sends me hate mail, I am, and you can quote this and put this on my Hindutva profile, I am an atheist, liberal, American, university professor whose first destination in India was to go to Bari Sons in the con market and buy books. My hobbies include reading. That's about it. I am a fully paid up member of the con market gang. If I were going to hang out socially with Indians purely in my, all of you have been wonderful, but if I were to hang out socially with Indians purely in my off-duty time, and I'm almost certainly the sorts of people I would well, let me put it this way. If I had never gotten notorious in India, I would be much more likely to find myself at an event with Rahul or Priyanka Gandhi than ever to find myself at an event with Mohan Bhagwat or Narendra Modi. My social milieu is the Congress Party, what we call the comprador elite, the English-speaking intellectual India. Those are my people. Now, they may not like me because I tell the truth, but socially, that is my class. And I really want to be very clear about that. Okay, atheism is part of a school in India. Look, DM me that, and maybe I can join the school. We'll see. Am I really a Sanghi? Well, I've been invited to Shakas twice now, and both times it just didn't work out time-wise. But if anyone wants to, I'm going to Japan. I don't think they'll have Shakas in Japan, but after that, I'll be in the US and UK for 8 weeks, almost 8 weeks. And if anyone in New Jersey wants to bring me to a Shaka in New Jersey, I'd be very happy to. It'd be an interesting experience. I'll go, run around the circle and do my bit with the Lathi or the lightsaber, whichever one it is, and I'm sure it'd be a lot of fun. Am I a CIA agent, or am I a RAW agent, or am I maybe a ISI agent? I don't know. When I published that glowing review of Pathan, I loved Pathan, and I know many of you hated Pathan. Everyone said, no, I'm an ISI agent now. So yes, we've all lost track of all the labels I have. Now, the cap, we made a limited edition. Actually, Pranav Agarwal, who is my associate director at the Indian Century Roundtable, we're going to talk about that in a minute. He made a limited edition of 60 of these. This is cap 60 of 60. And we are giving them as thank yous to people who are either become members of the Indian Century Roundtable or who give serious pro bono support. Now, I appreciate everyone who's donated on GoFundMe. I'd love to give everyone a cap. We only have 60. They were made in India. It was very difficult to get them made in India. It's very hard to get made in India instead of made in China. It was a lot of effort, and these caps are for the people who are deeply involved with the organization. Now, memberships in Australia for individuals are $10,000 per year. For corporations, $50,000 per year. The people who are working pro bono, no one at the Indian Century Roundtable. Let me just put up the Indian Century Roundtable while we're talking about it. No one at the Indian Century Roundtable has taken any money whatsoever. So I just want to make sure. Yeah, that's up. So no one at the Indian Century Roundtable has taken any money. We've been, working on a zero budget. So everyone's been pro bono. Now, I want to be clear. If I ever get any money from the Indian Century Roundtable, it'll be years from now, which is to say, as long as I'm teaching at the University of Sydney, I can't take outside salary from the Indian Century Roundtable. So for me, This is entirely a pro bono effort. All this work, creating the report, all of that, that is pro bono. And if you think that work is worth $10,000, well, you won't begrudge me my cap. I didn't take a payment for writing the report. Similarly, my associate director, Pranav Agarwal, everything he's doing is pro bono. Our accountant, pro bono. Our company secretary, pro bono. Our web designer, the person who put all this together, and he's not just a web designer. He's a full communications manager. He did the logo. He laid out the report for us, all for free, pro bono. So at that level of commitment, if you're putting 30, 40, 50 hours in pro bono to create a website, logo, and report layout for us, that's worth a cap. The contributions I'm getting on GoFundMe, I really appreciate. I'll certainly be sending thank yous out, hopefully tonight. I just don't have enough caps to send everyone a cap, or the time. And I don't have any staff to do it. If you think about it, I don't have a mailing person who can put caps in bags for me and send them to people. None of that. We don't even have any money yet. Our money is coming in via the GoFundMe. I'll just point out the GoFundMe. We have this fundraiser up. We've already raised $3,000, which is absolutely fantastic. That's in less than 2 days. We've raised more than $3,000. And I'm much prouder of the fact that's from 52 separate donations. So more than 50 people have given. And in general, you can't give from India. There may be ways to do it, but in general, this is for people in the diaspora. And honestly, it's so much money. I wouldn't be asking people in India, unless they're very wealthy, to be contributing. But Indians in the diaspora, successful doctors, successful business people in the diaspora, they can certainly afford it. And, I really appreciate them contributing. All right, so that's the GoFundMe. The Indian Century Roundtable, I wanted to introduce it today. This is, we are the new think tank dedicated to providing detailed fact-based research on India and its liberal democratic institutions. Now, those of you who may not want a quote-unquote liberal India, I'm very sorry, you have a liberal India, which means that freedom of speech, freedom of the press, individual rights, even potentially gay marriage rights. The Supreme Court's debating it right now. You have all this in India, and whether you like it or not, it is a liberal democratic India. So we had the launch report examining the VDEM Institute. What we'll be commissioning over the next couple of years are reports on democracy. I'm going to do this annual report on the democracy rankings. Reports into press freedom and religious freedom. We'll be writing about reform. Our next research report will be on the Aadhaar system and security. So we'll at some point want to provide some objective tutorial on status of Kashmir, some objective tutorial, again, for Westerners on the Khalistan situation. Of course, you can, see the Rajdeep interview here if you want. That was a lot of fun. All right. About one thing I really want to emphasize about the Indian Century Roundtable, which is, and I believe it's here in no, it's not there. The one thing I really want to emphasize about the Indian Century Roundtable is that we are India focused, but Western facing, which is to say, I never want to give advice to India. I want to take knowledge about India, analysis of India, and bring it to a Western audience. So while I'm gratified that there's been so much Indian audience for what the Indian Century Roundtable is doing, ultimately, that's not the goal. Ultimately, the goal is to reach a Western audience. And, we'll see how that goes. Right now, we're working on Australia, and I think we have a good chance to get accurate information about India into the Australian press. I'm currently working on doing that key to the Modi visit. Mr. Modi will be visiting Australia. I think it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. In any case, he'll be here Tuesday doing a big stadium event, and there's a lot of press coverage around that. And I'd like to ensure that the Australian media have access to an accurate narrative about Indian democracy. All right, am I a Chinese agent? Yeah, I might be. Yeah, I need to get rid of the Chinese art now. I'm sorry, I like the Chinese art. That's just a fact. All right. The left has left the chat room. Yeah, well, I'm neither left nor right. I really have to, I can't say that enough to people. I'm just objective. You can be left or right and like or dislike what I do. I'm not on the Indian left and right, and I'm not even on the American or the Australian left and right. I wrote a book that could be considered very sympathetic to the Bernie Sanders campaign, and I wrote a book that could be considered very sympathetic to the Donald Trump campaign. What I am is a Democrat, and I do believe the one moral position I will take is that democracy is not only worst of all possible, best of all possible, what the best worst system, something like that. No, democracy is absolutely good. I believe in democracy. I believe that in the human dignity it gives people to govern themselves, and thus what democracy is all about is people making choices to govern themselves, even if they make bad choices. That's people's right to make bad choices. All right, more about the left and such. Um, all right. People suggesting talks. Look, if you want me to talk to anybody, connect us online, and I'm really happy to talk to just about anything. Yes, send people the compilation of videos. The big ones are on the Indian Century Roundtable website. All right, now to real questions. What got you started on India? There was a Polish political scientist named Adam Przeworski, Polish American, who did a major study, quantitative study of democracy, the first major quantitative cross-national study of democracy, and I think it was published in 2002. And he and his colleagues concluded that India was the sole outlier. India should never have been a democracy from the beginning, and if it did start as a democracy, it should quickly have collapsed. And so he said, India is this great riddle of political science, how it remained a democracy. Now, the political scientists haven't been able to answer that. I came to this challenge as a political sociologist. I'm not a political scientist. That distinction may seem very narrow to some of you, but political scientists tend to focus on the formal rules of politics, whereas political sociologists tend to focus on how social groups in society interact to create a political outcome. And so I thought, look, we should be able to answer this question. If you can't answer it through formal political theory analysis, let's try to answer it via practical sociological analysis. And that's really what drew me to India. Now, I had started already writing a little about India because I have long been writing. My whole career up till 2020 was focused on the study of middle-income countries. And in fact, my first articles on India are all about development in India, not about democracy in India. I had studied development in post-socialist transition economies first in Eastern Europe, mostly in my PhD thesis and in the early 2000s, then in China throughout the 2010s, and then I focused on post-socialist transition in India. I thought would be my next main focus. But I quickly realized that the really interesting thing about India wasn't the post-socialist transition, which for me was the same old story, which is you eliminate planning, and when you reduce state planning, you take the lid off the economy, and the economy grows. And telling that story yet again, and I've told that story about China, I've told that story about Eastern Europe. Telling that story again about India just didn't seem as exciting as telling a story about democracy, and that's what led me to this new set of studies. And really, that's now occupied me for a little over 3 years, going on 4 years, studying Indian democracy. Rahul is going to speak in Stanford. What's my view on that speech? Well, if it hasn't happened yet, how can I have a view about it? I was unaware of it. So there you go. Which camera lens do to watch? I don't know. Scarf looks good on me. All right, I will put the scarf back on. I have a few of these scarves that have been given to me in my travels around India, and I have to say, this is really my favorite with the tridents. Sorry, I can't get the left and right because my screen, for some reason, is not mirrored, and so it's hard to. There we go. There we go. So it's nice having the tridents on the scarf. I really like this one scarf. Okay. Can we contribute to the Indian Century Roundtable? Now we're trying to have the Indian Century Roundtable really focused on an elite level discourse, which is to say, I want to produce resources that will be used by the news media, by parliamentarians. We're having roundtables, literal roundtables with a dozen people where we want to educate parliamentarians, news media, and potentially investors about the reality of conditions in India. I'm not trying to have a mass think tank effort. As a result, we're never, at least not in my imagination of the organization, I can't say never, I guess, but certainly not in the next few years. We're not going to have a website that has short articles, a typical think tank commentary. We're not going to do that on our website. I only want to have impactful report after impactful report. Now, once I can hire people, and we're looking at mainly we have the GoFundMe, that's great, but most of our support so far has been coming from large Australian corporations. And we're talking to large Australian corporations about becoming members. Several of those discussions are advanced. And once we have those resources in from large corporations, my top priority for personnel hires is a media manager, which is to say we want to ensure that these research reports we create. So I did this VDEM report, but it hasn't yet been incorporated, for example, on Wikipedia. So if I were to take, I'll just go back to our other page and let me go to Wikipedia, VDEM Institute. All right. So if you look at the VDEM page, and I haven't looked at this recently. So somebody had added criticism. Well, there's the indices. All right. So somebody has added a section for criticism of the indices. Now, I don't know if it's still there. Impact and usage, criticisms. Okay. So, VDEM rankings were criticized by political sociologist Salvatore Babones. And all of this cites press interviews, really. 18, 19, 20, 21. If we look at the references, these are our press interviews or articles about, one, it cites the Indian Democracy Report. When I looked at this a while back, it didn't even cite the report. So what I'd like to do is hire a media manager who can take the reports we're writing and who can go to Wikipedia, who can go to newspapers, who can go to all sorts of venues and say, you have this one narrative, but our research shows something else. Will you cite our research to show that there's also a different narrative, that there are also criticisms? That's really where we're focused. I have, my ambition for the Indian Century Roundtable is not that we will, reach out to, certainly not to the Indian public, or even really to the Australian or US public directly. Now, I'll do that. I write op-eds for Australian newspapers. Hopefully with help, I'm traveling around the US in June, July, and hopefully with help from US foundations, I'll be able to reach US newspapers as well. But those are things I'm writing personally. And I would also encourage you, if you're an op-ed writer, to write those kind of op-eds, submit them to US, Australian newspapers. But those are not outputs of the Indian Century Roundtable. The Indian Century Roundtable's outputs are and will be research reports, not opinion. I present my opinion in an op-ed. It's called, it's an opposite editorial. It's not, the op doesn't stand for opinion. But nonetheless, I'll present my views in an op-ed, but the organization's views come from a research report. Now, if you have those research skills, if you're a qualified researcher who, has a subject on which you have a strong background and you'd like to write a major research report of, 4,000 to 5,000 words on an important topic, I want to stress it has to be a purely factual report. Of course, you can take a position. In the VDEM report, I take a very strong position against VDEM, but it can't be any opinion. It can't be any, how dare they do this, or, we Hindus are proud to be that. The Indian Century Roundtable is entirely nonpartisan. We're just producing research and trying to spread it out in the world. Now, if that's you, writing a bona fide research report on an important topic, send me an email. My DMs are open. It's easy to reach me. But if you want to be part of the debate, the rough and tumble of the debate, just get on Twitter, send your own op-ed to a newspaper. That's a debate for you to have. Okay, Alan Dershowitz on Trump. It is funny. So, people say I've gotten involved with both comments on Trump and comments on Modi, both of them outsider politicians. And that is true. And I have to say, I consider myself an outsider intellectual. Yes, I have a position in a major research university, but I look around at my colleagues, and most of them are children of other professors, children of professionals. When I went to college, when I first went off to university, my mother was working in an aluminum factory. My father had died 2 years previously. When my father was alive, he sold cigarettes on Broadway. Little Salvatore G was there on Broadway in 1976, literally sitting in a stool and selling cigarettes at Sam's Cigarettes across the on 113th Street, between 112th 113th Street on Broadway. That's my social background. Now, now everyone in my family has done well. My mother, since afterwards, got a master's degree and became a high school math teacher, and that's wonderful. I'm very proud of her for that. But I don't come from the same social milieu as other members of my class, and I think that's maybe why I'm much more skeptical of the claims made by the intellectual class that other people who were born into it might well be. During election season 2024, I'll come to India. Well, maybe I will. I've been nominated to run for Lok Sabha from Varanasi. At least I've been nominated on Twitter. I have to give up my U.S. citizenship for that, I understand. So that may be a deal breaker. But if I'm asked, I'll tell you this. If I'm asked if Amit Shah, and anyone who knows Amit, tell him to give me a call. If Amit Shah calls me and says, Salvatore, we want you to run for Mr. Modi's old seat in Varanasi, I'll make this promise. I will renounce my U.S. citizenship, become Indian, and run with the BJP for Varanasi. And to be fair, if the Congress wants me to run for them in Varanasi, if Sonia, no, Karga is the official leader. So if Karga gives me a call, you know where to reach me. And if he gives me a call and says, Salvatore, we want you to run for Congress in Varanasi, I'll do it. And I'll even say the Aam Aadmi Party. If you want me to run for you in Varanasi, let me know. Otherwise, I'm keeping my U.S. citizenship and not running for parliament in India. Okay, why not get settled in India? The funny thing is, I almost moved to India, and this may sound bizarre. I almost moved to India in May of 2022, so a year ago right now. I was in serious discussions. I won't name the university because I'm not sure if they want to be named, but I was in serious discussions with an Indian university to take on a very exciting role as an executive dean, to be involved in faculty development and be part of the university's leadership team. And I was this close to going. And in fact, if I can be very frank, if it weren't for the air pollution in most of India's major cities, there's a good chance I would have gone. You have to make these questions, these trade-offs. I mean, Sydney has beautiful air quality almost all the time. Do you really want to trade off literally your health in exchange for a career opportunity? That's a tough one. And in fact, I ultimately did not go. Now, I would love to go to Andhra Pradesh. Everyone knows I am Telugu at heart. I'm sorry that I can't speak the language without help from Google Translate, but it is my favorite Indian language to at least play with. All right. Subversion of truth is always easier with lived experience than through data. Absolutely. Look, lived experience, everyone today wants to talk about authenticity and lived experience. I'm sorry to tell you, lived experience is essentially useless as a guide to knowledge. Now, it's very useful as a guide to personality, but it tells us nothing because everyone is in such a different social situation. Anyone who tells me, all my friends vote for Narendra Modi, and it's like, well, those 60% of Indians who are not your friends didn't. And anyone who says, how can any reasonable person support the BJP? And you say, well, like those, and we see that in the U.S. In the U.S., this has become extreme with Trump derangement syndrome. I mean, there are entire networks of people who insist that, Trump is a fascist dictator and white supremacists, et cetera, et cetera. Yet, 49% of Americans voted for him. And do you really believe that 49% of Americans are white supremacists, including the Black Americans who voted for Trump and the Hispanic Americans? I find that really hard to believe. So your lived experience is simply not useful. We have to go to survey data. Which is why when talking about the situation in Muslims in India, I was very surprised first of all, I was very surprised to go to the Pew Research Center survey data on Muslims' self-reported experiences of discrimination. Now, this is, not one individual's lived experience, but thousands of people's lived experience. And when you survey Indian Muslims about their lived experience of discrimination in India, there are relatively low levels of discrimination reported. Now, first, I was shocked by that finding. Everyone had preconditioned me to think that whether or not there was a lot of anti-Muslim discrimination, Muslims believed there was a lot of anti-Muslim discrimination. However, the data show Muslims don't believe that. Second, I was shocked that no one else was using this data, that the Pew Research Center buried this finding, which was the huge finding of their survey. Okay, a little joke about fact-checking in India. Yeah, criticizing people express their thoughts. Absolutely. This is par for the course of being in the public domain. And look, I've taken it a long time. I wrote a Trump book, so I've been roundly criticized. For that matter, like I said, I wrote a Sanders book, and when I first arrived in Australia, this is before the Sanders book, but when I first arrived in Australia, the very first time I appeared in the Australian news media, it was to be criticized as the University of Sydney's new Marxist professor, Salvatore Babones. So, you take it from all sides. Okay. No, I would not be surprised if journalists started citing sources like this, because the way these narratives occur is that a journalist simply says, Salvatore Babones has been called a hate monger. Now, that's an accurate statement. Salvatore Babones is a hate monger. I'm sorry. There's no evidence of that. Anyone who can find any evidence, bring it to me and I'll delete it, because I just don't hate anybody. But can you legitimately say as a journalist, Salvatore Babones has been called a hate monger? Absolutely. Now, what I want to do with the Indian Century Roundtable is flip that on its head and say, well, we can also say when we see an article, I'll give you an example. Forgive me, I need my glasses for this one. So I'll give you an example. If we look at the Wikipedia article for the RSS. Now, of course, RSS is really simple syndication, but it's also the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. Now, so look at the RSS. It says it is an Indian, okay, granted, right wing. Well, I don't use right wing that way, but in Indian norms, people use left and right wing, throw these words around. I wouldn't say that's too much of an extreme statement. Hindu nationalist, well, yeah, I mean, very much Hindu nationalist. Volunteer, certainly it is. Paramilitary organization. And, there's the citation. It's a paramilitary organization. And if you want to call it a paramilitary organization, you can find a link. Now, what I want to do with the Indian Century Roundtable is have the but. So I want to do a report at some point on the RSS, explaining the RSS to international audiences. And then someone can take that report and use it on Wikipedia, and preferably one member of our own staff, our media manager, will take that report, use it on Wikipedia to say, but such characterizations have been criticized. Are they wrong? We can't say they're wrong. But they have been criticized, but it has been pointed out that RSS have no weapons other than lathis. Okay, well, that can go on Wikipedia and you can cite it, right? So that's what we're going to do. So yes, these accusations come up and they can be used against me, but, we on the side of truth can also do the same thing, only with truth. And in my experience, true narratives have stronger legs than false ones. Now, I'm going to put this in very American, money terms. If I had $2 million a year, just $2 million a year, I could completely change the narrative on India, because the narrative I'd like to push on India is a true narrative. Those who are trying to peddle false narratives, have to spend enormously more. If you think how much the Muslim Brothers, how much the royalty in the Gulf region, how much these organizations are spending to vilify India with donations to U.S. universities, with donations to intergovernmental international non-governmental organizations, human rights organizations and such. It's enormous. I mean, the Islamist effort to infiltrate the U.S. Committee on International Religious Freedom would have cost them millions of dollars in campaign donations, because the U.S. CIRF is appointed on the recommendation of members of Congress. Now, U.S. members of Congress couldn't care less about India, Hindu-Muslim tensions in India. What they care about is, did a Muslim organization package $1 million of campaign contributions for their campaign? If yes, the quid pro quo is they'll make sure that someone gets appointed to the USCIRF. So, the truth is much cheaper than a lie. And I really believe in that. And so I think we can, I say we at the Indian Century Roundtable can win that war. Okay. Read the Arthashastra. Look, it's on my list, but I'm just going to be honest with you. I have so much to read. I can't read everything. I know of the Arthashastra. I'm aware of it. I know some of the basic ideas. I know the mandala theory of international relations. With apologies, I just can't read everything. There's so much to read, and I have a lot to do. It's the dope, and I think it's the dope in a good way. You are welcome. All right. I'm not going to get into debate about whether Hindus are atheist or not. That's for you guys to decide. So what I'm curious is, does anyone have any questions about the Indian Century Roundtable? Because that's primarily what I'm here to talk about, the fundraising campaign. Like I said, the GoFundMe is just to provide a venue for anyone who wants to donate, who can't become a legal member. Now, legal members have to live in Australia and have to give $10,000 a year to become a legal member, which means you get to appoint the board of directors. That is, the legal members actually oversee the organization, and legal members can fire me if they want. So I need a very high level of commitment for that. Now, people have warned me that Islamist organizations are going to pay me $10,000, for each of their people to become members, and they'll fire me. That's a pipe dream. I would be thrilled if a bunch of anti-Salvatores, gave me $10,000 to join the organization. I think that would be hilarious, because if they fire me, I could just start a new organization. But that's what but I'd love to talk with the Indian Century Roundtable. If anyone has questions about that, please do get them up. Now, no, I'm never going to be a right-wing Hindu nationalist. Thank you very much for paying. I didn't know you were able to contribute with an Indian credit card. My understanding from GoFundMe was that GoFundMe did not operate in India, but that may be that you can't run a campaign from India. Maybe you can contribute from India. Now, that said, I really appreciate it, and I hope you can afford it. So, thank you for making the donation. I really appreciate it. But really what I'm looking for is the Indian diaspora to step up to the plate. I'm very well aware that even, say, doctors and barristers in India are making 1/5 or 1/10 what their fellow doctors and barristers are making in Australia, the US, Canada, UK. And those are the people I'm really hoping will make a serious contribution. Now, I know it's not just the diaspora, and I thank everybody. Well, first of all, I didn't know that. I thought that it was... I understood from GoFundMe that I could not accept donations from India. If you are able to make donations, wonderful, and I really appreciate it. Again, I just want to stress, I appreciate all the support. Please don't donate more than you're able. There are people I keep meeting here in the diaspora in Sydney who need to step up to the plate. They say they love what I'm doing. They're making 10 times as much as their counterparts in India. Well, if someone in India can give $100, someone in Australia can give 1,000, and those are the people I'm really trying to get at. Look, $10 is nice. I just want to be honest and open about everything. I used to work for another thing. Actually, I've worked for 2 other think tanks. My experience working for think tanks is small donations are very welcome. They mean a lot emotionally. I really appreciate it. I want you to know that I very much am sincere and awed that people are willing to give their real money to support an effort that I'm just setting up and that has no track record, I really appreciate it. But everything comes from big donations, which is to say, one Australian corporate giving me $50,000 a year. Yeah, that's equivalent to getting 500 donations of $100 each. I've got to focus on the corporates because that $150,000 donation. I mean, I'm not going to get 500 $100 donations, no matter how much I plug, and that's just to equal one corporate membership. I need, I mean, I need a good 20 corporate members here in Australia to be really solidly up and running. 20 corporate memberships, if I wanted to get that from individual donations of $100 each, forget the $10. If I wanted to get that from individual donations of $100 each, I would need to get 1,000 $100 donations. That's sorry, not 1,000. I would need to get 10,000. 10,000. What's that in Indian numbers? 10,000 is just 10,000. It's not one lakh. I'm sorry. So I would need 10,000 individual donors to give 100. I don't have 10,000 individual donors to give $100. So forgive me. I don't want you to think that small donors are unimportant to me. Obviously, everyone matters to me. And emotionally, it means much more to get $10 from someone in India than to get $50,000 from a bank in Australia. But practically speaking, I need the banks in Australia to step up to the plate. Predictions for elections. I'm not a, what do you guys call it? A cephalogist or something? It's a purely Indian word. Everyone assumes that the BJP will win the 2014 general election. I have no reason to doubt that, but I have no particular insights into that. People who want to contribute on research, look, I'm really sorry. I don't need researchers. I have lots of researchers queued up. I'm very open to proposals for research. My email's open. My DMs are open. Come to me. I'm not dismissing proposals for research. I'm just saying what I need is money. I have many more researchers willing to research than I have people willing to give me $10,000 to pay for the staff I need. So I have the research. I'm always open to more. Please email me. We'll talk about it. It's possible. But my shortage is the money. And that's really what I'm focused on now, fundraising. I want to be clear, not asking for money from you. I'm asking for money from Australian corporates. And it's going well. They're very receptive, but it's a slow process to convince major corporations to jump on board. The Pakistan situation is very worrying. India's biggest challenge today is not a strong Pakistan. India's biggest challenge today is a weak Pakistan. That is a collapse of some kind in Pakistan. The biggest concern is not Imran Khan. The biggest concern is an Afghan Taliban-style takeover in Pakistan. I'm not predicting that. I'm saying that should be really on our radar as a possibility. Now that there is, just like the Taliban survived because there was a state sponsor for the Taliban in Pakistan, well, now there's a state sponsor for the Pakistani Taliban, and that state sponsor is called Afghanistan. And of course, the Pakistan military could suppress this if the Pakistan military were not compromised. I don't know enough about it to know that it's not compromised. So I think we should all be very concerned about this. G20 Srinagar, look, I have no idea. Obviously, it's a political statement. It's a boss move by Narendra Modi to put the G20 in Srinagar. Whether that'll make or break the G20, I have no idea. I don't know the discussions that are going on at that level. Look, finally, news. I'm not sure what news there is, but I'm giving you all the news I can. Okay. I am kept at arm's length by leading intellectuals after they realized I rely on facts. Well, yes, arm's length by intellectuals, but not by the media. I mean, I can't complain at all about the treatment I've received from major media in India. Starting with India Today, I've been interviewed by Rajdeep Sardesai. I know that was a hostile interview, but it was a great interview, and it got me a lot of exposure in India. Then I was interviewed by Shiva Arora in a highly sympathetic interview. And then maybe the most important interview I've ever done was with Gaurav Sawant on the VDEM rankings. And again, very sympathetic interview. So, and not only India Today, I've spoken to, I think, every major English language news station in India. And then a lot of, obviously, the online stations as well. So, that's just, I can't complain about the reception I've received. Look, News Laundry again. Like, I'm sorry about News Laundry again. My complaint is not that they cut parts out. My complaint is that they systematically downgraded my video and upgraded the other guy's video. So, for example, he appears with an artificial background as if he's in a newsroom or whatever. And for me, they're showing me on a screen. Similarly, his audio is loud and clear. My audio is as if I'm talking off. When they wanted to downgrade, not have people hear what I'm saying, they just dialed me down. So they have manipulated the video. They've not cut the video. They have manipulated the video. They have the Zoom conversation where just the two of us are on Zoom. I mean, I wasn't talking to him on a mysterious laptop. I was talking to him on Zoom, two boxes on Zoom, the same way we always do these things, whether it was Zoom or one of the other Microsoft Teams. I don't remember. Probably, I think it was Zoom. I want that video released, but they're not going to release it. And that's just, something we have to accept. I've left it behind. I'm pretty sure that they look ridiculous. And, I'm happy to talk to anybody. I was happy to talk to News Laundry, and I'd be happy to talk to critics again. I've even reached out to Karan Thapar on the interview. I would be thrilled to talk to Karan Thapar, to have a serious adult conversation. I don't mind if people disagree with me. I mind if people try to, defame me, and that's just ridiculous. Don't change, please. Well, what if I change my hat? How about that? All right, just having fun. All right, how's the book going? Look, I'm really sorry. The book is delayed. I wanted it to come out in January. I'm still working on it, and that's still the idea. But this stuff with the Indian Century Roundtable has really taken off. I have to push forward while it's there. So I've been having just tons of meetings with Australian corporates and individuals about the Indian Century Roundtable. And inevitably, that's cut into the writing time, and the schedule is going to slip. So I apologize about that. I'll do my best. Hopefully, it'll come out before the election, but I just can't guarantee it. Look, email if you want to talk about research reports. Email me. I can't do it on a live stream. Email me and set up a conversation, and I'm happy to talk about research reports. But I want to be clear: it's not that I will ask you to do research. It's that you should pitch to me. Here's an area where I have serious expertise, where I am a credentialed expert. I don't need anybody to go out and do the footwork for me. The footwork for research is easy. It's very quick. Writing the report is the hard part. So, I can typically do all the research for a report in a day or 2 days, but writing the 5,000 word report takes a month. And what I need is people who can write 5,000 word reports, who are credible experts in the fields that they are going to write on. So look, I really appreciate the enthusiasm. If you are a credible expert in the field you'd like to write on, email me and we'll talk about it very seriously. Who would be my top pick? I don't have anyone in particular in mind. I would prefer as much as possible to have non-Indians. Now, I appreciate all the support I've had in India, but the fact is, our goal with the Indian Century Roundtable is not to score points in India and to have people, say nice things about me on Indian media. The point of it is to change the narrative outside India. And for that, having outside experts is really the key. So, for example, we are talking to some Indians about doing research with the Indian Century Roundtable. I'm currently also talking, for example, to a top Australian barrister about writing a report about the collegium system. Now, there has never been, to my knowledge, a serious Western, not someone with an Indian surname, research report into the collegium system and its operation. Never. Now, maybe there has been. I can't find it. If there is, email it to me. Well, I'd like to publish this sort of research where we have someone who's completely disinterested, who doesn't do any business in India, who simply thinks this is an interesting intellectual challenge to research the concilium system and the collegium system and write a report. That's my ideal kind of report. Look, Hindus are not going to become a minority in India. I know there's a lot of talk about this. It's just not going to happen. Muslim fertility rates in India are only slightly higher than Hindu fertility rates in India. And as soon as India gets a uniform civil code, and I think most of us expect a uniform civil code after the next election, Muslim fertility rates in India will decline to be equal to India's. And the reason is that the only reason Muslim fertility rates in India are higher than Hindu fertility rates in India is that age at first marriage for Muslim girls is lower than that for Hindu girls. And girls who start childbearing early in their teenage years tend to have more children over their lifespan. Girls who delay childbearing into their 20s, first of all, have fewer children total, but second, have the wisdom to, they have more independence. If you have a 14, 15, 16-year-old girl in a marriage, it's hard to expect her to have the independence to control her own fertility decisions. When you have a 20, 21, 22-year-old woman in a marriage, yes, she's going to control her own fertility decisions. And all these circumstantial evidence suggests that Muslim women in India have very similar fertility preferences to Hindu women. It's just that they start, not all of them, a proportion of them start earlier. Uniform Civil Code, I think, will take care of that. And you're going to see a very stable Hindu-Muslim ratio in India going forward, probably from 2030 or so would be my guess. Okay. What do I miss most about the U.S.? Not much. My mother is really the only big thing, and my nieces and nephew, but not much else. Okay, I'm not going to be able to stay much longer. I am going to try to get through very quickly as many questions as I can. How do I intend to spend the money? Right now, everyone's pro bono, which means, my top number one priority for spending the money, I need to pay the web developer. I haven't paid him. Now, he's done a basic website for us. I need a serious 21st century website. I have to pay him to develop it. So that's first thing. I have to pay my company secretary. I have to pay for our company registration. I have to pay my accountant to file our taxes, right? So small money, a few $1,000s here and there, that's my top priority, is just paying for the professional services that so far we've received entirely pro bono from members of the Indian Australian community. After that, if I get major funding from Australia, and I can do that with the small contributions that you guys have been sending in. After that, my top priority as far as personnel, once Australian corporates start coming on board, is to hire a media manager. Now, hiring a media manager, including benefits, all in cost, is going to cost us $150,000 a year. So stop talking to me about $100. I need $150,000 a year for a media manager. Once I have that, then I'll be looking to start paying the associate director. So right now, our associate director is pro bono. I'd like to have him or someone else come in one day a week to manage the business side of the organization. I'm not a business person. I'm an academic. So I need someone one day a week to handle the business side. There, we're looking for a one day a week, high-skilled professional. I'm looking at $50,000 a year. Again, these are Australian prices, Australian dollars, not US dollars. So my first $200,000 is gone on the associate director and the media manager. I expect to probably raise around $200,000 for fiscal year 2024. I'm sorry, 2023-24. That's my budget for 23-24. Now, if you're seriously in that league of giving and you're going to give me $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, email me. I'll send you the financial prospectus. I'm happy to talk through hiring priorities and all of that. But I need $200,000 a year just to run the organization. And these are Australian prices. I know everything's cheaper in India. I'm sorry, we're not in India. We're in Australia, and we want to run this as an Australian organization, not as an Indian organization. There's some small costs for hosting roundtables, some small costs for commissioning research. It's much more expensive to promote the research than to commission the research. So commissioning research, I probably need about $10,000, again, Australian dollars per report. I can raise that money. The people who want to write reports are happy in general to do it on a pro bono basis. So again, the research money I don't necessarily need immediately. I need the money to pay for the professional staff who will promote the research. That is, who will make sure that the research gets noticed. My VDEM paper, as nice as it was of Gaurav Sawant to feature it on India Today, it got essentially no coverage other than India Today. That is the coverage that I personally reached out to Gaurav and said, "This is really important. I'm willing to give you an exclusive." And I did give him an exclusive interview, but no one in Australia covered it. No one in the US covered it. What I need is the media manager to make sure that our research gets the traction to make a difference in the world. Okay. What does India need to do differently? Agricultural reform, number one issue. I've talked about that a bit. I know that IPL is the India Premier League. I don't know anything else about it. If there's a Varanasi team, that's my team. If there's not a Varanasi team, they're all the same. They're same to me. Yeah, the collegium system. I want this to be a highly controversial report, especially since we all expect that after the election there will be a return to judicial reform as a big issue in India, and I'd like to be part of it, and I'd like to be able. More importantly, we're not trying to be part of it in India. I want to be able to explain to people outside India when inevitably, the New York Times and the Washington Post are going to say, after being reelected with a new majority in 2024, India's strongman ruler Narendra Modi has taken aim at the judiciary. I could write the article right now. What we want to, so I know these articles are going to happen. I want to commission the research that puts India's collegium system in international profile, and just makes it clear to an international audience what a serious Australian barrister and law professor thinks about the collegium system. Not what Indians think about it, not the highly politicized views. A total outsider who's highly credentialed, wears a wig. What this person thinks about the collegium system is what I want to put forward. Okay, how far are you in donations round? Look, we're at. All the money I have is right here. So 3,114 Australian dollars. That said, our outreach to Australian corporates is sufficiently strong that, like I said, I really expect to have 3 to 4 members for the new fiscal year, which would mean we'll have $150,000, $200,000. Well, let's say 3 corporate members, which would get us $150,000. And I expect maybe 3 individual members. Some members of the Indian Australian community have stepped up and said they would contribute. Also, and I really want to encourage, I really want you guys to know this, Australian investors have committed. Individual investors in Australia have said, we'll join. Now, how many of them will join when they're invoiced? We'll be invoicing them right after the Modi visit. We've just been very busy with stuff relating to the Modi visit. We'll see. But my hope and goal, and I think it's a realistic goal, is that we'll raise $200,000 to have that is our budget for fiscal year 2023-2024. Okay, at a minimum, we'll have $100,000, but my hope is $200,000, and I think it's a realistic hope. Okay. Look, can we do justice with a single report? Obviously not. The point is to help inform Western coverage of India. Right now, Western coverage of India is conducted on such a thin basis of knowledge that you have to start somewhere. Now, if you know Mr. Ambani, Mr. Adani, the Tatas, and the Jindals, and someone who wants to give me $20 million. Yeah, I'll start a huge think tank, and we'll do tons of reports. Everything starts somewhere, and this is where we're starting. Okay, I am a neoliberal Zionist. No, I'm very much not a neoliberal. I'm a liberal in the classical liberal sense. I'm not a Zionist. I'm not even Jewish. How can you be a Zionist unless you're Jewish? Or even if you were evangelical Christian, you might be a Zionist because you might believe that the Jews returning to Israel is part of God's plan for the second coming. No, because the fact that I see anti-Zionism as an evil, certainly unpalatable force in our world today, and as a substitute for anti-Semitism, a polite substitute for anti-Semitism doesn't mean that I'm a Zionist. In the same way, I mean, look, we've been ridiculing me being a Hindutva person. I don't embrace Hindutva. I'm simply telling people that Hindutva, all this stuff about Hindutva is connected to Nazis, and Savarkar was a Nazi, and Hindutvas are, proponents are right-wing extremists. All of this is ridiculous. And really, that's what, I'm just saying this as a liberal. I constantly stress that as a liberal intellectual, yeah, I'm convinced that a lot of anti-Zionism is just anti-Semitism in disguise, and I'm convinced that a lot of anti-Hindutva activism is just anti-Hinduism in disguise. No, I don't expect any interest among big Western donors. What we're getting in the West, in Australia, we're trying to make this an Australian effort. What we're expecting in the West is a large number of medium-sized donors. That is big Australian corporates like the 5 big banks, the big universities also, that they may want to support this effort. And if we can make this a team effort, if we can get 20 Australian corporates behind this effort, we're off to the races. All right. How should India handle China? Unfortunately, India simply has to push back about China, and there's not much else that India can do. That's just an unfortunate fact of life. Okay, how can I contribute? Link is there in the chat. Look, I appreciate any contribution. Just go to the GoFundMe, and if you are not sure how to go to the GoFundMe, if you Google Indian Century Roundtable, the second link will probably be the GoFundMe for the Indian Century Roundtable. So if you can't find the link, just Google it. You'll find it. And I really appreciate the thought. All right, I'm going to have to wrap it up there. Very quickly, I don't know much about Carvacrol, though I've been on the podcast. No, there are no similar organizations in Australia. There is the Australia India Institute at the University of Melbourne, but they now studiously avoid anything controversial, and all they do is arrange business trips to India. They don't get involved with anything controversial regarding India. Okay, thank you very much for joining me. Look, I really appreciate it. I hope everyone knows just how touched I am by all of this outpouring from India. It means a lot to me. I appreciate it. It makes me feel like my work as an academic has meaning. And there are very few academics who have the opportunity to feel that anyone cares about their research. And so I really appreciate it. So I got a thank you from Nitin, but I want to say thank you, to all of you. Look, it means an enormous amount to me. As all of you know, my DMs are always open. I'm a public figure. You can find me on email. All you have to do is Google me. I don't know why all these other intellectuals want to hide behind barriers as if there's thousands of people who want to talk to them. I really appreciate it. I treasure every email I receive, and I get all these, not all these, I mean, a few a day. I get emails or DMs on Twitter, it means a lot to me. So I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. I have to get going now. Thanks for your support. Much appreciated. And I'll be back in a few weeks for another Sundays with Salvatore. But with apologies, my next one will be keyed to North American and UK audience because I'll be in the US. So it'll probably be a terrible time, India time. I probably won't get any viewers, but I do want to do an outreach for the US, Canada, UK audience. So that'll be the next one. Thanks, everyone. Take care. Have a great day, and I'll have a good night here in Sydney.